What's happening? Happy Monday to you and yours. Draft week, baby. It is draft week. Thanks for joining us as always. It is very much appreciated. In full transparency, as you know, I try to be as transparent as possible with all of you. I am recording this on Sunday afternoon. I've got a back issue. It's been quite the week. And so my work schedule with my back, not really sure if I'm going to end up going to the doctor's tomorrow, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I wanted to get this content out to you, and the safest way to do that was to record this episode. So here we are on Sunday, but I know for you it's Monday, so happy Monday. The draft is this Thursday night. My one and only mock draft of the season is over at Locked On Patriots. You could check that out today. I went through all the rounds. I gave you all of my picks for the Patriots, 4, 38, 69, 77, etc. So check that out at Locked On Patriots. Wednesday, we've got a guest. I'll tell you later about who that's going to be. But we have a guest on Wednesday that you're all going to enjoy. Let's jump into it. The last episode, we talked about how risky it would be for the Patriots to go defense at number 4. You can check that out in the archives. Had a lot of fun talking about it. Had some great reaction to that. Thanks to all of you. Lots of attention, meanwhile, has been paid at the left tackle spot, the offensive line. A lot of people debating. Will Campbell, Armand Membu, what do you do? Do you drop down in the draft? Do you trade back in and draft your left tackle? We've talked about all those scenarios. Lots of attention paid to left tackle. But what about skill positions? Now, we did a podcast going back a couple of weeks ago about Ashton Genty. But there's one guy that we haven't discussed that much. And I think he's somebody that at least some Patriots fans would be happy with if the Patriots drafted him at number 4, and that's Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Now, let's tell you a little bit about Ty Warren and why some people feel like he could be the guy, but we first start with how the Patriots feel about Tyler Warren. This was at Mass Live, Karen Guregian, Chris Mason, Mark Daniels. This was after the Combine, and I held on to this note because I said to myself, all right, well, if they're going to surprise people, it could be this pick. So I wanted to keep this note. And here's what Mass Live wrote post-Combine. Everything is in play at number 4. If New England finds a trade partner and moves down the board, keep an eye on Tyler Warren. So if they move down the board, what if they don't move down the board? Should we still keep an eye on Tyler Warren? Mike Vrabel at the owners' meetings said this, according to Mark Daniels, who transcribed it, called Tyler Warren a quote-unquote wonderful prospect. And the Patriots met with Warren at the Combine. So here's what Dan Brugler of The Athletic has to say about Tyler Warren, who, by the way, is ranked as the 8th overall prospect by Brugler. So it wouldn't be some crazy reach just looking at the overall rankings to draft Warren at number 8. It wouldn't be a crazy reach, therefore, to draft him at number 4. So you look at the number 1 tight end in the class. He's top 10 overall. And we've talked about all these questions about who could be there at 4. Pretty much everybody has at least one question, if not multiple questions. So Warren, interesting prospect to consider at 4. Here's what Brugler wrote. Warren projects as a rookie NFL starter with traditional qualities as well as the schematic versatility to be a multi-tool weapon. Let's run down some of the strengths that Brugler wrote about regarding Warren. Well-built athlete, prototypical frame for tight ends, 6'6", 256, big dude. Had more one-handed grabs than drops on the 2024 film. Maintains focus with congested catch points or impending contact, so he's willing to go into the middle. He's willing to take shots and finish with the football. Comfortable leaving his feet. Has body flexibility to high point or adjust to off-target throws. He's got some wiggle after the catch. 56.2% of Tyler Warren's receiving yards in 2024 were post-catch. So he's got a little bit of yak ability there. Takes pride in blocking responsibilities. Notably models his game after George Kittle. Well, hey, if you could be George Kittle, I'd love that at tight end, wouldn't you? Laid back, unassuming, and avoids the spotlight. He's not on social media. Shout out to Tyler Warren for that. but he's competitive on the field, routinely plays through minor injuries, and he does not miss games. So you see some of the qualities that I believe Mike Vrabel would be very excited about if they drafted Tyler Warren at number 4. So here's the argument. Here's my argument. We're going to have some fun with this. First, I will argue for Tyler Warren. I will stand on the table. I will tell you why the Patriots should draft him 4th overall. And then I'll give you the other side. But let me give you the argument for Warren. Number 1, he's a top 8 prospect. So again, not a huge reach at 4. And he's clean. He's a clean prospect. He's one of the only guys that we could talk about in this draft that doesn't have a major question mark surrounding him. Now, he does have a question, which I'll get to a little bit later, but there's nothing that sticks out to you where you would just eliminate him and say, no, there's no way we're going to draft that guy. We can't draft Tyler Warren because of this. We can't draft him because of that. He's a clean prospect, and he's a top 8 prospect. So not crazy to pick him at 4. Just looking at, in a vacuum, the overall ranking and his background, the clean sheet. You could also argue, hey, look, Hunter Henry is 31 years old. He's on the back 9. We have no idea if Hunter Henry is going to be able to give the Patriots the same level of football he gave them last year this season. Tight end's a pretty tough position. Henry's a pretty tough guy. He plays the game tough. He's taken a lot of hits. So he's 31 on the back 9, and you wonder if we'll start to see that decline and hope it's not a sharp decline. Meanwhile, the other guy you got at tight end is Austin Hooper. He's on a 1-year deal. And I'm not going to turn down any great prospect because I have a veteran that's on a 1-year deal. And Jaheim Bell, we don't really know what he's going to be. And we don't know if Jaheim Bell was a favorite of the front office last year or a favorite of the coaching staff last year. So you do have some questions at tight end long-term. Henry 31, Hooper 1-year deal, Jaheim Bell, we have no idea, shrug emoji. Top 8 prospect, clean prospect. And if you bring Tyler Warren in, he's going to help Drake May for the next 7-8 years, at least, if he stays healthy. If he stays healthy, there is a steady, dependable weapon for May. And we always get wrapped up in the wide receiver conversation, and rightfully so, because it's a critical position. But don't get it twisted. If you have a top-tier tight end, that guy is going to help your quarterback. We've seen it time and time again in the league. So having that definitive number 1 tight end who can produce for you for the next 7-8 years alongside Drake May, things could be a lot worse than that. We talk about versatility and positional versatility. Well, there's versatility within Tyler Warren's game because at Penn State, if you watched any Penn State, and I saw a number of Penn State games this year, including the game against Notre Dame, my favorite team in the college football playoff. And if you watch Tyler Warren, he's all over the place. He's versatile, lines up outside, lines up inside on the line of scrimmage. You obviously can line him up at the end of the offensive line, traditionally as the tight end right there at the end. He also lined up in the backfield. He ran wildcat for Penn State. This is a guy that can play all over the place out of the tight end position. And I feel like Josh McDaniels would really take advantage of Tyler Warren's versatility and get the most out of his game. We've seen McDaniels capable of utilizing tight ends in different ways and getting them the football. And having somebody like Warren with that versatility, with that capability, I think that'd be a fun toy for Josh McDaniels to utilize within this offense. And I just have the feeling that it would be a marriage made in heaven between Drake May, Tyler Warren, and Josh McDaniels. It fits. Makes a lot of sense. Now, I'll tell you whether or not I'd pick him. But first, let me say, help us out. You know the deal. Don't forget to hit that like button. More thumbs up means more eyeballs. Take advantage of that algorithm. So don't forget to like this channel. Don't forget to like this specific podcast. Don't forget to throw a comment in. Are you in or out on the idea of Tyler Warren at number 4 for the Patriots? So like, comment, and subscribe. trying to hit 6,600 subscribers by night one of the NFL draft. It's the week of the draft. We're about 60, 70 away from hitting our goal. You can help us. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're watching or listening on demand at Spotify, you rate and review, throw a comment in there as well. And Apple Pods, 5-star reviews always help us. So thank you. I appreciate every single one of you. Ultimately, I would pass on Tyler Warren at number 4. I just gave you plenty of reasons why he'd be a great fit, but I would ultimately pass on him at number 4. It reminds me of the Ashton Genty conversation to a point, because when you look at positional depth in this draft, running back, incredibly deep. We could have 30 to 34 running backs drafted this coming weekend. It is so deep at that position. Tight end is not nearly that deep because running back is just freakishly deep this year, but tight end does have depth. We could talk about guys like Taylor. We could talk about Arroyo. We could talk about Ferguson. We could talk about Fannin. And we could talk about 3-4 other guys. Helm. I mean, there's just a number of different tight ends that I think are NFL level tight ends. Now, they might not be at the level of Tyler Warren, but what's the difference? How significant is the difference between Warren and that next guy, or Warren and the 3rd or 4th tight end? It's a very similar conversation that we had with Genty. Genty, if you draft him, you might get 3-4 excellent years out of him. You might, but we have to appreciate that position, the wear and tear, in how Genty, by the time you become a true legitimate year in, year out contender, fingers crossed, Genty might be feeling it a little bit. So when you look at Tyler Warren, his style of play is very physical. I'm not necessarily worried about the timeline for him, but I do look at the other tight ends and say, how big of a difference is there between somebody like Warren and Taylor? Now, I didn't mention Loveland because he's going to go in the first round, and I don't think the Patriots would trade back in to get into the top 20 to draft Loveland. So you look at beyond those two guys in the first round, and that's where you get the Taylor, the Arroyos, the Fergusons, the Fannins. That's where you get those names. And I think all those guys I just mentioned, they have NFL starter potential. They could be starters in year one. So what is the difference between Tyler Warren and those other guys? Positional value. Yes, Hunter Henry's 31. Yes, Austin Hooper has a 1-year deal. Yes, we're not really sure who Jaheim Bell is as an NFL player. However, I just named you 3 tight ends. 2 of those 3 tight ends are legitimate NFL tight ends. Hunter Henry, arguably a top 10 tight end. You might slide him to top 15, but he's one of the better tight ends in football. And so you have that position for 2025. You pretty much have it locked down. Henry, Hooper, and then you've got your young guy in Bell. Now, I'm not saying don't draft a tight end. I wouldn't mind them drafting a tight end because of Henry being 31, because of Hooper on a 1-year deal, because of Bell being an unknown. But drafting a tight end at number 4, when I already have 2 solid, dependable, legitimate tight ends on my roster, I just feel like that value isn't there. Now, I mentioned a question about Tyler Warren. And questions, there's all sorts of different questions that you can ask about different players. But for Tyler Warren, he's going to be 23 years old in May. Now, this is the case for a number of guys in this draft because of COVID. But it needs to be brought up. When you're looking at, let's say, Will Campbell's 21. He just turned 21 in January. Tyler Warren will be 23 in May. Now, I'm not saying he's an old man. I'm not saying he's going to play 4 or 5 years and break down and be done. But I do think that makes his ceiling a question. Because what we've seen from Tyler Warren at Penn State might be the best Warren that we see. Period. End of sentence. That might be a ceiling. That most likely is his ceiling at 23 years old in May. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Plug and play guy. I like Warren a lot. If the Patriots were drafting from, let's say, 8, 9, 10 to 15, Tyler Warren would be near the top of my list to draft, given that position in the draft, right? At that slot, 8, 9, 10 to 15, that slot would make a little bit more sense to me, if not a lot more sense. But if you're drafting somebody in the top 5, and he's going to be 23 years old, and he might have already reached his ceiling, I'm just less enamored with that idea. Because if he hit his ceiling while he's a plug-and-play guy and he's going to be a good football player, I don't know if he brings that kind of potential that you're looking for. And when we look at, and I'm talking specifically about skill position players, you could draft an offensive lineman and say his ceiling is a ceiling because he's an offensive lineman. Can he protect? Yes. Can he run block? Yes. Okay, good. Great. Fine. But when we talk about skill position players, when you're drafting a skill position player, that high in the top 5, you want to see somebody who has that extra gear or two to his game inevitably. And so I just wonder that about Warren. Again, I really like him as a prospect. I watched a lot of him in college. I love what I saw. But at 4, here's another thing about Warren. He's not really explosive. He makes plays on the football. And he's, again, a dependable guy. He's got great hands. He can make spectacular catches, but he's not explosive. According to Dane Brugler in The Beast, 5.9% of Warren's targets the past 2 years came 20 yards or more. Now, you can scheme that, and we've seen Josh McDaniels a bunch run his tight ends down the seam and get, explosive plays out of that. But Warren is not this electric, explosive athlete on the field where you go, my goodness, man, that guy can do that. He's not necessarily that explosive type of player. So some might question that. But when I'm drafting at 4, I want one of two things. I want a premium position, left tackle, wide receiver, defensive end. We've gone through the list, outside cornerback 1. At number 4, I want either a premium position or somebody who has a very high ceiling, as I just mentioned. And Warren does not play a premium position, and I don't think he has this super high ceiling at the NFL level. Could end up being wrong. Again, really like the player. Borderline love the player. But I've got to take my emotion out of it, and I've got to look at this objectively. Could be a trade down candidate. And I think that's why you go back to what Mass Live said post-combine, that if the Patriots find a trade partner and they move down the board, keep an eye on Tyler Warren, because I do think as you slide down a little bit further, when you talk about 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, when you get down to that part of the draft, Warren starts to make more sense. But at number 4, Tyler, I appreciate you. And I like your game, if not love your game, but not the right guy at the right time for the New England Patriots, unless you start talking trade down scenarios. And even then, you're still probably looking at tackle. All right, let's get to the odds. The odds for the top 7 picks, because we've seen a little bit of shifting over the past couple days, and I always find this to be very interesting. As we get closer to the draft, what is Vegas telling us about the top prospects in said draft? This is from DraftKings. Let's start with number 1, Tennessee. So Cam Ward is an overwhelming favorite to go number 1 to Tennessee. DraftKings has Ward as a minus 20,000 favorite. So write it in the books with Sharpie. Cam Ward's going to the Titans like we've talked about. You're not going to see anything close to that number unless Vegas has it confirmed for all intents and purposes that Ward's going number 1. So DraftKings has Ward going number 1 to Tennessee, minus 20,000 favorite. Then we get to some more numbers that are a little bit more reasonable. So Cleveland, they are a minus 900 favorite for Travis Hunter. So DraftKings is telling us, and that's obviously a heavy favorite at minus 900. If you're not used to like the gambling lingo, the closer you get to minus 110, 115, 105, 120, that's almost like a 50-50 bet. So when you're talking about a minus 900, you would have to pay like $900 to win like a buck. So Travis Hunter is a minus 900 favorite to go to Cleveland. And I think after listening to Andrew Berry last week call Travis Hunter Shohei Ohtani, I think it's a pretty safe bet that we're going to see Travis Hunter go number 2. What's interesting here is Abdul Carter. So Abdul Carter is a minus 650 favorite to go to the Giants at 3. So let's stick a pin in that. For the Patriots, Will Campbell's the favorite at minus 400. So Will Campbell is, he's less of a favorite to go to the Patriots than the top 3 guys are a favorite to go to their teams respectively. You went from minus 20,000 with Cam Ward, which is still bananas, to minus 900 for Travis Hunter, to minus 650 for Carter, and then minus 400 for Campbell. Now, obviously, as you get deeper into the draft, it's a lot tougher to deem somebody a favorite just because it's a little bit more unpredictable as you move on. So as you get to pick 4, minus 400, that's still a pretty, that's a pretty significant favorite, Campbell going to the Patriots. And then 5, 6, 7, that's when you start creeping towards the buck for a buck deal here. So the Jags at 5, Mason Graham is a minus 115 favorite. And then at 6, Ashton Genty is actually a heavier favorite to go to the Raiders than Graham is to go to the Jags. Genty is a minus 125 favorite. And then we wrap up the top 7 with the New York Jets. And this might upset some people, but the Jets, Armand Membu is plus 150. So now you're into the other side of it. So now Vegas is telling you, we're not really sure. We're not calling Membu a favorite to go to the Jets, but out of all the names, he's the one that's closer to being a favorite than the others at plus 150. So you make that swing from favorite to a plus from 6 to 7. You got Genty at minus 125. You'd say Graham at minus 115, actually at 5. And then you get to Armand Membu at plus 150. So here's what I take from this. Number 1, it's very unlikely that DraftKings will hit all 7 of these. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is certainly possible. Some might even deem it like probable, but I think it's unlikely that they hit all 7. How many times have we seen Vegas rank the, betting odds for the top 5 to 8 guys in the NFL draft, and every single one of those hits? So it's unlikely. It's more likely than not that one or more than one of these guys will not end up with the team that DraftKings is telling us are the favorites to land. The highest volatility to me, the most interesting player on this list is Carter, because he's got the high volatility. Now, of course, he's a minus 650 favorite. So if you bet Carter not going to the Giants, you'd make a nice chunk of change. I just think there's still some question about the Giants. And even there could be a 10% chance that they draft Shedeur Sanders, a 5% chance they draft Shedeur Sanders. But I don't even know if the Giants, if they're sitting there at 3, one of the questions that I have about this draft is if the Giants are sitting there at 3, Hunter goes to the Browns at 2, are the Giants going to try to trade that 3rd pick to a team thinking Abdul Carter is the last blue chip prospect in this draft, according to many people. And so this might be our chance to get a big trade haul. And we've got Kayvon Thibodeau and we've got Burns at the defensive end position. And even though Thibodeau is not like a great player, a game changer, the Giants could argue, hey, if we move down a few slots here and we get some major draft capital, that opens the door for us to address the quarterback position. If we got to trade back into the first round, we now have more ammunition. So it's all part of this big puzzle. I wouldn't rule out the idea of the Giants trading that 3rd pick if Carter's sitting there. I would not rule it out. Of course, you've got some of the red flags that have been discussed. You've got the rumors that he's possibly falling down the board. So I would not find it banana land if the Giants are talking to teams draft night if the board goes the way we think it's going to go, which will be Cam Ward and Travis Hunter. Interestingly enough, Mason Graham going 5th to the Jaguars. The question that I have about that, it's one of those connections that has been made over and over and over again, much like Campbell to the Patriots. But the question I have about Graham to the Jags is the Jags, their new head coach is Liam Cohen from Rhode Island. Yeah, baby. Represent, Rhodey. Offensive head coach. Does an offensive head coach want to draft an interior defensive lineman as his first pick as the new head coach of that program? I don't know. Maybe he goes offensive line at 5. So that's interesting. Then you've got Armand Membu. Same kind of feeling, right? The Jets drafted Olu Fashanu last year. They could easily come back and draft Membu at 7 if he's there. But I have the same kind of question. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, defensive guy, now the head coach with the Jets. Is he going to go for the offensive lineman, or is he going to start looking at that defensive line and say, hey, if Mason Graham is still there, if the Jags don't pick him, do they pick Mason Graham at 7? Do they take a swing at somebody like Jalen Walker? I also think Tyler Warren's possible for the Jets at 7. I think that makes sense. Another point, if you're wondering about Shedeur Sanders, Shedeur is the favorite to go to the Saints at number 9. The last time I looked this up, let me look it up live, as a matter of fact, now that I'm DraftKings odds, NFL draft picks. Let's pull this up again. I'm recording this on Sunday, so this might change by the time you guys are watching this or listening to this. But Shedeur Sanders at the 9th pick is still the favorite to go 9th to the Saints, and he's at a plus 215. So Sanders, that's moved a little bit. Not a lot. It's moved a little over the past day or two. But Shedeur Sanders going to the Saints is the favorite pick there at plus 215. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think with that play, with the Shedeur, the favorite at number 9 at plus 215, Vegas be playing games, trying to get the public on that play because everybody's thinking Derek Carr's injury, Shedeur Sanders, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of people, I mean, keep this in mind if you're going to bet. A lot of people are saying that this draft is unpredictable. This is a very unpredictable first round because there's just not a lot of like top tier talent. Usually you have the same 7 to 10 guys every year that you see as the top 7 to 10 guys, and they fall in line somehow, some way along that top 10. This year, it's not the case. You got Carter, you got Hunter, you got Ward, and then after that, it's, is Will Campbell going to be the next guy? Is Armand Membu going to be the next guy? Nobody really knows. And Jordan Schultz from Fox Sports, he got this quote from a veteran NFC East scout over the past few days. Quote, you can basically get the same player at 23 that you can get at 8, unquote. And that's why we haven't seen any trades yet. I mean, this is the latest we've gone without any team trading up into the first round or in the first round. It's like this usually we have at least one trade, if not multiple trades by now. And maybe one trade's happened since I recorded this, but usually that's the case. You have like at least one, if not two, maybe even more trades made with a couple of weeks before the draft, a week before the draft. But this year, nobody has traded up in that first round. And it's a lot to do with what that NFC East scout said to Jordan Schultz, which is, hey, a lot of people in the league believe you can get the same guy at 23 that you can get at 8. I mean, that's good news for the Patriots because obviously they're drafting at 4, which is before 8. But a lot of people in the league see that as like the cutoff. Like you got 6 or 7 guys that might be worthy, but then once you get to 8 or 9, you can get the same guy the next 14, 15 picks as far as, potential and value and all of that. So it's going to be a very unpredictable round 1 because of that. Or maybe it doesn't play out that way. Maybe the league is full of it. Maybe this is predictable. Maybe we look back on Friday after the draft on Thursday night, the first round, and we look at these odds and we go, well, don't you know, the DraftKings people knocked it out of the park. They went 7 for 7. It's possible. It's possible that happens. But I'm not sure what's going to happen this year because there seems like guys like, there's just a bunch of names that are out there that you can talk about that will, end up dropping. There's just so many names that have a high volatility to them that you don't really know. I mean, I could go through the list here, just a few names like, Tet McMillan is Pro Football Focus's third ranked prospect. Some people are saying that Tet could fall to the 20s. Now, does that happen? I don't know. He could go in the top 10. It's an unknown. I mean, Walter Nolan is another guy. Some people think Walter Nolan could go in the top 5 to 8. He's the 8th ranked prospect at Pro Football Focus, explosive defensive tackle. Has some questions about him and how he approaches the game, some character questions, but people say, he could go in the top 5 to 8, or he could go into the middle to late first round. Jahad Campbell with his labrum injury. If he was healthy, he'd be probably a top 10 to 12 pick. Could he slide to the late first round? Mike Green has those, serious allegations against him off the field. Does that impact him? Because if those allegations did not exist, Mike Green's going probably in the top 14 or 15 picks in this draft. So how far does he fall? There are just so many questions. Josh Simmons and his injury. How much does that impact him? So this draft is very unpredictable. James Pierce is another name that's a first-round talent, but he also has allegations off the field against him. So it's going to be fascinating to watch this draft play out. It's a little all over the place, a little all over, and we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds. All right, Wednesday, Jeff Howe. Jeff Howe is scheduled to join us. Of course, Jeff works at The Athletic. He's a friend of the program. Jeff will be joining us, scheduled to join us on Wednesday. We'll go live at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. I'll, of course, have questions about the Patriots draft with Jeff. We can get into the draft overall with Jeff. I know he's got a story coming out about one of the top prospects in this draft, one of those guys that are going to go in the top 3. Jeff has a story coming out talking about that guy, so we'll get into that a little bit. So Jeff Howe joining us on Wednesday. It should be great. I love when Jeff joins us. Also, my one and only mock draft for 2025. It's up at Locked On right now, the Locked On Patriots podcast. You can check that out. Don't forget to help us here. Like, comment, and subscribe. 6,600 subscribers is the goal by round 1 Thursday night. We're about 60, 70 away. Let's keep pushing on that. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will all see you all, he meant to say, on Wednesday, live at 3 o'clock. Again, Jeff Howe scheduled. Until then, be well.